So normally, I don't like, do any of this, but just because of the occasion, it's April 1st. Usually people joke a lot about stuff. I talk about this in the Undertale Arena server way too much, but it's one of my personal hopes for this game, because this is the only game that does Murder Sans right, at least from what I see in any other type of game, except for special old Sans game here. So, if you don't know, this is Dust Murder Sans, and this game is called the UTA. It gets a little moveset that gives Bone Magic, Toy Knife, Blue Magic Plus, Empty Gun, War Dagger, Bone Magic Plus. As you can see, all this is laid out with level groupings. He gets to this, he gets pretty powerful, but he can still be beat, usually. Blue Magic Plus, he's getting there in the terms of difficulty, at least for other opponents. For him, he gets stuff done. Empty Gun, bridging this gap for me usually it guarantees a level 20 afterwards, for me. But dying before this, it's a curse of mine. Now, of course, there's not really many people here, so this character is pretty much useless. His gimmick only works in PvP scenarios, and that's a shame, but it makes sense, because if I were to try and do anything else, or, go show you what type of PvE scenarios I'm talking about. Well, first I'm gonna mute this type of music. This is the fight for Papyrus. He's really outdated, but one of my personal favorites. I'll show the potential of this. He's not even doing a singular blue bone. Oh, there he is. Yeah, you move into this, it just obliterates your stamp. Or, well, dodges in this game. As you can also see, I have 18 dodges left, 17 now. That's how many until I actually die. And, the whole fight was real simple. It's because of that lack of difficulty is why he doesn't get much stuff either. Or, a chance at getting PvE for levels and such. It's just a little too easy to farm off of, even if it's real limited. And it's really unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. I've been holding out for this update for a long time. The ever so mystical PvE update. Crazy, right? This game has been pretty much discontinued for a while, or at least put on the back burner for a long time. And I had virtually no hopes of it ever returning. But hey, they got someone to work on the game now. A singular soul. God help him, right? I would say he has a lot of people with high expectations, but there's hardly anyone left for this game. Except for whenever the April Fool's update rolled around. There was actually a pretty good chunk of people that showed up, but only for like a few seconds and dipped when they realized, oh, nothing changed. Quite literally nothing changed. No update, no anything. And I bet you a lot of people were actually looking in the server and saw that one ping that was sent that says, hey, you could get Last Breath Sans. A whole lot of people freaked out, thought it was true, logged on, wasn't. I mean, don't get me wrong, you should see the other, like, character that they have. It's so funny. I'm not gonna show in this video because, well, at least not this video. I might do it in a live stream later, but again, there's not really much stuff going on, and it's a real shame too because look at this, okay? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, that's fun. His call gimmick doesn't work. Sometimes you can press this button to enter a small cutscene depending on where he's at. If it's somewhere here where there's nothing in the code that really gives him anything to say, he usually says any line or whatever. You know, it's all preset dialogue. It's always going to be the same too, because it's not recognized as a real option. But, you know, that's just how it is. So, the main reason why I really care about this is, even though it can be used for PvP and such, this game's really unfair when it comes to game passes. Like, really, really unfair. Genos is combined with error, and error is one of the most broken things in this game, and it's a game pass. Power creep in this game in general is insane. Counter picks in this game is insane. This guy here, even at max level, which pretty much turns him into almost a literal god, can be beaten by classic Sans still. Granted, I think it's canon, but if you were to see how classic Sans is, you would know. Oh, makes sense. He's that broken. He can spam bone zones and snipe you from like 10,000 yards away. And he can spam his blasters and bone shot, which is basically a guaranteed 1 damage shotgun blast worth of a huge amount of bones. A huge amount. Like, if you were hit by all of those bones, which no one has a big enough hitbox for that, even Asgore does. If you were to get hit by all of those bones, you would lose at least 40, 50, give or take. But you know, that's why it has that big of a spread. This guy doesn't have that. He's more melee focused. Bone Shredder. Of course, it has a little short cooldown until you're able to use it again. And it does sort of have its own form of cooldown. This one's secondary move this is the weakest one by far because I only have bone magic because I'm level 1. It is, yeah, it's that quick, it's that weak. It hardly does anything. From what I know, it does slow a bit on hit, but after you get Toy Knife, you basically never use this bone magic thing again. Because the thing that other people normally would want to use it for is outclassed once you get any other item. And that's bone magic surprise. Looks overpowered, right? Well, you step in, you always take constant damage, and it is the most overpowered thing in this game. And it scales with level too. The issue is that it's easy to avoid and omega easy to counter. Because this does no stun, or it doesn't even interrupt anyone that's in this already to use a counter. It doesn't do anything like that. No safeguards, no nothing. So it's easy to just run right through. Oh, he hit you into it like this. He can hit you into it, especially with the last hit of the knockback here. He can hit you into it, slow you even. Depending on the character, you could just walk out and punish him if he's like low enough level. If you're versing anything like Ink, which is well known for their rushdown, unless you're a god and can actually fight Ink at level 8, maybe level 12. Level 12 is actually like borderline equal for Ink, but whenever it's error, it's like the bare minimum. Game passes and counter picks plague this game like mad. Like, it's an issue. Mainly because of this guy's gimmick. His gimmick, because it's tied solely to PvP only, is the issue. But because PvE is so brain dead easy right now, like, I will show you one of the more updated versions of it. Which personally is one of my favorites, which is Flowey here. Flowey is really cool in this game. And I also gotta turn the UI on. Sorry for the overlap, by the way. Can't really toggle that thing off. That's how outdated it is, at least theme-wise. Yeah, you can see it's like, it's cool. It's really cool. I'm gonna see if it can counter. It's like a counter. Come on. Frick, it's gonna kill me before it counters. Frickin', oh yeah, come on. Okay. Sorry for no cuts, but like, I don't know how to do it yet. Guess no counter. I'm not one to die to a simple enemy. Either way, regardless, right? Current Flowey is cool, and yes, he does have a hard mode, and it's virtually impossible. Like, they get 9,999 HP, a whole lot of defense, and because this guy's gimmick is only tied to PvP, you have absolutely no chance. Zero. and if you want to stay with PvE, you can't. Because apparently this game is supposed to be mainly built around PvP only. Or a major focus in PvP. But here's what I say to that. I say this game has potential in both ways, if done right. And given the state of the game, I think PvE, even though it's a more short-term option, is the best for longevity. At least currently, in my opinion. Because look at the player retention. Only because I'm here and stayed here for a bit. This is how many people that showed. This is not the norm. It's not at all. And because this is, you know, because this is like, it's April Fool's. People are expecting an update. When there's no update, people just sit around and do nothing. Even like some new things or some concepts, it would be really cool and it'd be pretty fun for everyone. The more players that are kept over here, the more of a chance they'll stay, and the more of a chance they'll find value in any forms of cosmetics or anything of the sort, like this. This game has really neat cosmetics. Even some that's able to change eyes or something real special here. Something like this, right? Even though it's not really built for dust sands here, you get the thing, right? It has potential. Like a lot of potential. They just don't want to use the potential. I don't get it. Let me see if I can find this one accessory. This is one that, here it is. This is my favorite one by far. This one, even though it doesn't quite show, even though it's still not that synced. This is why I like it. It gives you a trail. A trail that follows behind you while you move. Now, for this guy in particular, it's super cool. Wouldn't recommend using this, though, as this guy, because PvP's really cutthroat. If they eventually get PvE Murder Sans, then this would rock. This would be so cool as an accessory. Because watch this. It still trails behind you. Because it's an accessory, it's separate from your body. As well as like some of these other things, right? So as you can see, let me see. Alright, here. This is the little guy here. You get this for owning the Game Pass for Error. Getting Geno and Error gives you this little guy here. Called Blester. Blester? That's how it's shown here. Anyway. So, if I go invisible, you can't see him. But the eye still stays. That's because it's a special effect and not an actual thing that goes on your character. Technically, this does fall under that category, but it's physical. This thing here is still physical. The eye, all the effects, physical. So, these effects is really cool. And in PvE, showing off the cosmetics would be really cool especially if it's like a less restrictive, less restrictive thing, like let's say having a party system that would help improve PvE. At least, making it to where it's like more approachable for the average person instead of having to deal with the average menu shenanigans that this game had to deal with for a long time here, as you can see. But it can also like improve with seamless co-op. Either way, it's really cool. This guy, even though yes, I can see the argument against the PvE Murder Sans, he can probably get too overpowered or what have you. Here's what I'll say to this. What most of the people that usually love to do PvP don't understand is that an average player, even if they get up to like, let's say they farm up to Undyne, and Undyne's like one of the most powerful characters you could ever fight here, right? Well, if this had the same polish as the Flowey fight, and I'll show you later the Toriel fight, it gets real interesting. But yeah, as you can see there, I was just able to delete their HP, the Pirates' HP. That's because of Bone Surprise. That's why everyone, and including the PvP guys, which they're right about this, Bone Magic Surprise as it stands is too powerful of a move for any of these bots. Any of them. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what. Except for maybe Flowey. Because Flowey actually like moves around in random patterns. Maybe sometimes on occasion he can enter the same one bone zone if you're lucky. But to even get to the hard mode version of Flowey, you need to speed run through his first HP phase almost immediately. And it's so hard to do that, even as like level 1 murder. If you're like level 4, maybe it could be way easier, even if you get countered. Which, if you get countered by Flowey, it strings you up with vines, and then you fall down like you're ragdolled. As simple as it is. But this guy, the reason why a lot of people struggle and why I think a good portion of the people quit is, one, he was super expensive. This guy here. He was omega expensive. But he's one of the most common, or like, not common, one of the more well-known AUs if you were into AUs way back when. He's like there alongside Horror and Killer. Those types of AUs. There is also FDY Sans, the one that's like they steal others' magic and use it against them. Pretty tanky, yeah. This over here, FDY Dust Sans. Pretty outdated character, but still pretty strong nonetheless. But man, let me tell you, this game has issues. A lot of issues. But I still love the game. My only issue with this game is... yeah, the game's dead. Anyway. The main issue with this game that I know of so far is that one, it doesn't update much, and for something that's like a Roblox game, you have to basically treat it as a live service game. If you don't, player retention is gonna plummet, and that's horrible for if you want to focus for PvP. That's a given. But again, the main way you get stats and the main way you get any of this stuff here, EXP, souls, DT. Now don't get this EXP version confused with this version of EXP, okay? This guy's gimmick is heavily reliant on anything like battles and such. His grief gimmick is also really important. This allows you to activate a thing called acticophobia or something of that sort. This doubles blasters, so any blasters that he has, and currently only 2. And these are heavily luck-based. Same thing with snares, but as you can see, they're able to group up, and that's a major slow if you hit the enemy to those snares. It's huge. Most characters, you could just, after they get hit by those snares, you can just bone surprise, and that's a lot of damage already. And you can keep them in there because you have bone shred in it. It has a pretty low cooldown. Of course, you could do secondary move. It kind of does another slow. I think it does bonus damage if you're moving too, so that's cool. But again, this move is virtually useless compared to the other moves, because let me tell you why. Toy Knife lets you rush down with secondary and the surprise. It gives you Toy Knife as a surprise weapon. It lets you rush down at the opponent and do a ton of damage if you do the surprise. Now if you do the secondary move, it's a weaker hit, but it's still a really good mobility tool. I dare say vital to this guy because he's a melee character, mostly. Blue Magic Plus, you get to have a blue soul counter and a really solid bone shred surprise, where you get to just throw the blue version of this thing at someone and it does a really good chunk of damage. They're moving, which by the way, you shouldn't use snares in Blue Magic Plus unless you want them to go to you. Rarely do you want that in this game. Getting rushed down is horrible in this game. Also another issue, but to sidestep that a bit for this scenario specifically, you getting slowed down by these already if you hit the opponent into it enough times and they just slow down significantly after hitting like 4 of those things. That's a major slow. You can hit them with that blue bone surprise and it will do significant damage, especially if they're trying to move even if they're slow. It just does damage! And that is hard to balance. Especially whenever he gets to the other upper, like, LV. It's not as powerful as I'm trying to make it out to be, but that's what they think in their minds. That's what they think, and that's why it's hard to make them see how other people would see it. They just think PvP this, PvP that. Someone that's probably gonna reach level 20 with ease in PvE is probably gonna be a god, or at least going to be really strong against game passes. First few times I would agree, until they figured out just how high the skill ceiling is in this game. This game is not beginner friendly in the slightest, even though you get to have like one of the coolest characters in this game, which is Papyrus, to start off with. You can have Papyrus as a free starter. He can wreck face if you know what you're doing with him. And combo. he can combo a significant portion of someone's HP, and he can spare a person after all that fighting. He's just built that way. He's Canon Papyrus. He's cool. He's actually way better than how the current, like, AI fight goes. And I'll show you that, actually. Just as an example of how good Papyrus is right now. Don't mind this, right? Don't mind it. So as you can see, he's pretty slow, but his range is significant. He has this bone thing here that you can play golf with, or, you know, use your head as a golf ball. And of course this, which you can actually set up a few times or stack them. Sometimes it doesn't last that long. I think it's up to 3 max, or no, it just despawns. Yeah. Technically up to 3 max, but it does eventually despawn like that. But here. A little too much. I think I forgot to balance this guy. Oh well, get the gist, right? Just a little hard with the outdated stuff because, well, you see just how brand new his moveset looks. This is new. Of course, if you're inside the bone ring, you would be blue-souled. That would deal damage, but not that much. This, if you land it, you can actually get more damage off of your other moves, or at least one other move. So choose which one you want. I don't know if it affects the special attack. I'm not sure about that. It might. Maybe the whole thing. But regardless, right? That's just the potential of this guy. It's cool. Oh yeah, I forgot. I forgot the movement gimmick here. Just a quick little thing here. He can do this. And get a snowball. And yeah, pretty much that. By the way, don't know when this happened, but there used to be a model here that shows the snowball, because you can get a big snowball and just be able to chuck it at someone's face. They'll fly to the moon and back. I'm not joking. Unfortunately, I have no one here to actually show that, because that effect only works on people that are not in combat. So stuff in like a safe zone. This is considered a safe zone. So yeah. So outside this, you're able to see not in safe zone, or not in the safe zone. And then if I walk back in, you're in a safe zone. And that's about it for this one. So going back to, you know, Murder Sans, because I actually wanted to show this off too early. Let me get rid of this real quick. So this, I'm fine with, right? If you do not want the aspect of losing your progress, please do not play this character. He resets LV on death, and if he's spared, he offs himself. in Minecraft. He does oof, you know. But yeah, this is the thing I have an issue with. The character itself is really hard to learn and super complex, even though he's like, sure, he can be easy to pilot, but to be really effective with this guy, even at level 20, you have to really learn the ins and outs of this guy. And some of his moves are still even bugged. Which is saying a lot. Not a lot of guys are usually bugged like he is. And of course, you know, real cool stuff, right? Speed over here. Call is still broken. But yeah, used to be a lot of cool stuff. Oh, yeah, there's secret stuff here that you can find here too. It's little fun stuff like that you could just find in this game. It could be a cool hangout area, but again, this is a fighting game at its core. You know, there's a lot of roleplay stuff that you can do, a lot of emotes. Like this, look at this. You can do that with any character, by the way, if you have this emote. It's cool. But, again, there's no one around, there's no one to show it to, why have it to begin with? That's the issue, another issue that this game has. A lot of players assume that PvP is what carries the game, and it's PvP alone. That's partially true, also depending on the player base, but mixing PvE and PvP, you need to have both if the game starts off this way, at least in concept. It can be brushed up upon and it can be perfected. I mean, even if there's slight improvements here and there, eventually it'll work up and people will see that the devs care. That's what people really want to see in the end, that the devs care. Currently they don't. Or at least some of them really don't. But that's only because this game was originally a cash grab. That's why this is here and it, quote unquote, has to stay that way. Although, personally, I think PvE in games that also have PvP is super cool. Especially a game like this. Sure, the characters might not be all that balanced, but this, having the ability to do this if you're having a bad day in PvP, is a great game design. It's great. Because if you're getting frustrated with the PvP side of things, you want to unwind, this is your go-to. I mean, even with the fight, which is the most simplistic, but super cool design-wise, it lets you have fun in a separate way, in a different way. That's what's cool about this game, and its potential. And this is a way that you can have fun. Just throwing snowball at other people, having a snowball fight. You could do that. There used to be items, but, you know, they don't exist anymore. Granted, they removed items for a reason. There used to be a few items that used to be so overpowered. Would make sense for this guy here, because if you die as him, you lose all your progress. Now, a lot of people think about this if they're on the opposite side, fighting dust sands here. But this EXP gimmick is extremely cutthroat, especially at the beginning. The main two things you have to worry about as Murder Sans is your counters, who you can and can't fight, and their skill level too, as well as what stuff you have at your disposal to fight against other things. Like, to fight Horror Sans, the bare minimum is empty gun. Because if you don't have empty gun, you can't zone him properly. Empty gun secondary allows you to throw 3 bone projectiles. And yeah, they could trigger counter if they're hit, but that's what you have combat shortcut for. The more level you have, the more this extends. So you're able to tank that counter and not suffer through that the counter that Horror Sans threw at, right? Because his counter slows and deals damage over time. If you're caught in that, he can catch up with you, and this character's dodge specifically can be absolutely ripped through like crazy. I'll see if I can show that here once Papyrus throws out blue bones, yeah. Watch this. That's crazy. Now, of course, you know, that's the main reason why he's unable to use this, or to use his gimmick in PvE. Because they're just that dumb. But the reason why I showed you that, and why he actually does just have 35 dodges, is because if I were to use someone like Sans, for instance, if I use Sans, regular old classic Sans, watch this dodge in particular. He gets iframed after it. And it's actually exactly after 3 dodges, he gets to have those iframes. Even though other people tend to think that the side dodges or back dodge, you know, you can only dodge to side, side, and back. You can also use shift block in any form or fashion, because the only thing that this thing really does need an aim at is Bone Zone. Bone Zone's the only thing you really do need to aim with your mouse. That's if this guy stays the same how he is right now. He can do this. You missed it? Yeah, all the way over there? How about this? You see that? And you can hardly see the follow-up bones. The only thing you can see there is the warning. Now, maybe that was a little too hard to see, right? Well, what if I were to go here? You might be able to see it a little bit there, right? Look at this range. Look at it. Like, if I were to go over here, and by the way, he could just slightly abuse the hitbox over here, because as you can see, those bones, hitbox shows throughout here too. So he can actually cover a bit more distance if someone tries to abuse the thing here, if the Sans places it right. However, I say this is about nearly max distance, and my view or render, you can hardly see back over there. But you aim it just right. Hit that tree. Hit that tree. It's on that tree. Then you swerve a little bit over here. You see someone there. That attack guarantees a hit if they're inside the zone. And if you put it on to someone, especially as slow as classic, it will, you know, it'll be hard to actually get out of. Because even at like these corner edges, you could still get hit by just a single one of those. And the bone zones deal at least 15 to 20 damage each because it's true damage. Which, you know, it makes sense. It's Sans, but he also gets to have a harder time dealing with some other fights too. Like if someone has a lot of if someone has a lot of HP or can regen HP, like Undyne here, it's a long and pretty bad issue. Now, the best thing with this game that I can see, at least right now, if you have friends, or if you have people that are willing to not take this game as seriously as most of the other people that still stick around does, there's still some that, you know, likes to take it casually at times, but there's others, especially the ones that really like those higher tier or loves to sweat with the lower tier type characters, like in Ruins, aka one of the ones I have here now. They tend to get kind of confused about how the average player plays the game, or figures out how the average player learns about the game. Because if you're an average player, or especially if you're new, and you're still trying to figure things out, I guarantee you, Murder Sans will still be the most technical character in the entire game for you to learn. That's because of the sheer amount of tools at his disposal. And even if you learn how to figure out, like, if you even know at least half or a little less than half of these, like Toy Knife for example, it's moderately easy to understand, but to really get the full aspect of the character, you need to use all of these except for Bone Magic. Bone Magic's the only one that I really know is that useless. Like, it's so useless, in fact, that the only thing that you wouldn't want is the secondary move here. It's that useless. And you want to know something? If you have Toy Knife equipped and you want to use Bone Magic Surprise, you could use, I kid you not, Combat Shortcut Surprise, and it works. Now, I don't have Toy Knife currently equipped, but you can see in a showcase video, someone has it. It's an outdated one, but it's there. His stats aren't as bad as it used to be, or he isn't as raid boss as he used to be. Which, again, that's why I say he should be able to earn at least a bit from these PvE encounters. Yes, I know, facing off against a level 20 guy is going to be a pain, especially if they only use Toy Knife, but it's better for the health of the game for at least an average few people that really wanted to play this character and have a different experience than just someone that's a pro at game passes or at classic Sans, right? Or let's say, actually, here's a better example. Way back when I was trying to figure out this character's matchups against other stuff, right? Samurai Muffin is the bane of my existence. So much so that I actually died to them at level 20. I was still a little inept at that time, but that just goes to show you how... Oh, by the way, Samurai Muffet Phase 2. Samurai Muffet has phases. Now I'll also show you the character. This is Samurai Muffet. They might not look it, but they are actually extremely powerful. The mobility, insane. These slashes, insane. They currently had a miniature rework. I think that's a little bugged. But anyway, here. Look at that. Oh, they just made the shurikens like real close range. Anyway, you can see how strong this character can be. This is like, even though Murder Sans, like at level 1, could still make this guy look a bit like fodder, you just saw Samurai Muffet mess their HP up, and I hardly took any damage, and that's just phase 1. This is phase 2.
Bankai.
Oh, I forgot. Things different. My bad. Anyway, this is the new look. The horn, it's pretty neat detail. The main thing about this character, though, at least the new thing, right? They actually significantly nerfed the character more than I remember. They used to be a lot more powerful, like they had more hits on the Odachi. They used to be able to use like all sorts of stuff, and is just overall powerhouse. By the way, Tarantula Swing, this move, it slows on hit and can leave a trail of spider webs. It slows the opponent. Unfortunately, it doesn't slow anyone that's NPC or, you know, anything that you saw, like Papyrus, him floating about. Yeah, it doesn't affect him because he doesn't walk. He doesn't actually walk, he just floats. Same with Undyne. Yeah, actually, they sort of significantly nerfed this phase 2. It used to be way more broken, especially because you could move during parry. You could move during this, and just walk into any like attack. To be honest, I think all counters should follow this way. That's what I think. And if you're in an attack already and you didn't already try to counter or parry it, you should totally be able to, well, if you're already in an attack, you're not stunned, but is suffering like damage over time or whatever, aside from fire, like bone zones or what have you, you can't use the counter. Same goes for dodge characters that also have a counter. That's what I want to see. Anyway, to end this off, Murder Sans. Currently, the reason why he can't do any form of PvE and have his gimmick, you know, be effective, it makes sense, especially if you just do this right away and you knock him into it. Just obliterates their HP. But if the AI weren't so dumb, they could actually walk out. Maybe some of these bosses can actually counter something like this and can punish the Murder Sans for trying. Or, you know, Murder Sans could probably make them with their counter using another ability, an ability that's like high damaging, like let's say last year. This is like decently high damaging. Or anything like their last Bone Shredder. They could probably do stuff to like make the AI think, oh, I'm gonna take a lot of damage, got a counter. With the counter, they'll you could snare, do the surprise anyway. They would still be able to walk out of it, mind you. I mean, they could also just have some of these bosses just have a way to have a get off me tool, like Toriel does right now. Speaking of which, I should show what Toriel looks like. I will say this though. It's been a while since I fought Toriel. It's gonna be a little rocky. Teleport to the ruins. Doing this real quick. It's just me and someone else. So, the overall gimmick that, but oh yeah, I should preface this for saying this as well. Toriel's gimmicks first was used as a test to see just how well can they actually make these archetypes for some of these bosses and what they can make them react to, right? This is Toriel. Yeah. This is as you can see, it's obliterated. However, phase 2. Rush down. Oh! Yeah, that's an issue. Snares don't work. Not against her, anyway. Last one. This is tank. You know what they say, candles and meat stay out of the kitchen. This is the best opportunity I can have. Oh, just barely. Just barely lived. But as you can see, that's a lot better in terms of even survivability. And given that they weren't even programmed to avoid the bone surprise, it is... You can see the potential in this game. I'm telling you. They just don't let this dude... They just don't allow him to get LV and EXP from this. Like, you don't even have to give him grief, just EXP like 50 or whatever. By the way, every single kill guarantees at least 300 EXP, from what I know. Either that, it might scale between different levels and such. I mean, especially with grief here, grief caps. EXP has a soft cap, if I'm remembering correctly. It's to prevent alt farms from happening. But hey, they don't have to worry about anything here either, because no one really likes this game anymore. Again, it's just how it goes. The unfortunate truth, but what can you do? Again, more attacks, more reactions for the NPCs that they could do. It could be way cooler, and it would actually give this guy a reason to get EXP and maybe some grief, depending on how hard the fight is. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be as easy as getting grief from PvP, although that also comes with its own catch, being rage swapped with Game Pass or counter pick. That's always a possibility, and in fact happened to me so many times it made me playing this guy so miserable within the year or two that he's been out for. Like, miserable. Only rarely do I actually get to have real fun, because those are the times that people don't rage swap on Game Pass or counter pick me. And guess what? Those are the times I usually got a guaranteed level 20, because no one were being that petty. Which is why I'm so stuck up on this guy not being able to have PvE LV at least. Because this would solve most of that type of issue. Now, if a new player were to try to do this and get it through solely just this method, well, they have to deal with all this stuff that they would probably get down a decent amount, but after they get it enough times, they might get a little bored of this type of character specifically, because he does require a lot of effort to learn and play, and even to get to level 20 to begin with. Not to mention how potentially harder it can be to get to level 20 because of actual accurate EXP count. Well, it is still supposed to be a hard character to pilot and use. I mean, sure, he's not as hard to use, especially with toy knife. But compared to an actual pro player, where, by the way, they would most likely play PvP more instead because they know more about how to counter game passes, or usually they know stuff more so than the Game Pass users. They could probably counter most of their Game Pass users, right? Unless there's a specific Game Pass user that just loves to catch you by surprise and actually try to kill you, like how some murders would do it as well. Way back whenever the game was that popular. Yeah, it's a bad situation all around. But the people that are the best of the best, especially with this character, know how to circumvent that. Not everyone else does, and not everyone else is that good at the game. Now, I'm not that bad at the game, okay? I used to be able to get level 20 a lot of times before any of that, right? Yes, I have my complaints about people rage swapping, but that's because at lower LV, like, again, what I said earlier, before level 12, this is the tool you get to use, the bare minimum, to fight against other game passes and counters. And this, by the way, this isn't even the bare minimum against classic Sans. It's usually up closer to this, or maybe actually just level 20 to equal it out, at least remotely. Now, I'm sorry that this is a long drawn out video, probably should have been a small stream, but like, this is an important game to me. This is an important game to me. I care about this game, and I also care about the aspect of this guy's potential. Yes, he's meant to be cutthroat, but the game passes, counter picks, you name it, give a really unfair situation to the majority of the player base if they were to try to pick up this character and learn him. Or at least get to LV 20 with him once. Now, they might do it more. They might actually try to do PvP with him either after or before, you know, actually earning him the way that it wasn't originally intended to. But it's just how it goes. It's how the cookie crumbles. I'm just real upset about this, man. Because the only other game that's close is Sans game. It's Undertale Just Us. It's the only game that gets close. Which, by the way, if you are here in this video, you know, actually realizes what song this is from. This is from the same game. Even though this says Sans game, what you saw here was Undertale Just Us. It's essentially the same game, as you can see here. And if you've already seen my previous videos or live streams on Sans game or Undertale Just Us, you'll see how much I really like that game. That's because it's one of the only other games that's good in quality. Actually does Murder Sans right. And this comes so close to it, but just right before it could be the absolute best he could be. Including in terms of balance, by the way. It would make this character and the experience that he provides like nothing else ever would in any other game ever. That's why I'm upset. And plus, if I can level with you all for a bit, I'm so tired of getting rage swapped against or being waited out because if I die once, I lose the progress, and the server could just straight up die after I die, or after a while of waiting, the server just dies. The issue about that is, as well, is that some people don't really care about that because they don't play this guy. They don't understand that struggle. They don't know that for some people, their best to get their best route to get to level 20 is up to an hour. I think up to an hour might be the average for an average person, if they get lucky. I think on my first time I had 1 hour 30 minutes roughly. Could be exaggerating that a little bit, but I think that's what my first level 20 was. Aside from the PvE shenanigans it used to spawn with. Yeah, when this character first dropped, he was Omega broken, and he could also gain LV and grief from NPCs. Now, the reason why it was removed, I get it. He was overpowered as frick. He's not that overpowered anymore. In fact, I think he's more balanced than he ever was. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot for this character. I mean, sure, his moveset and stuff and the concepts for it could be changed. It could be polished more. Because this was it was already said before, this is the most rushed portion of this guy. It was his moveset. Everything else, like the call mechanic, which unfortunately doesn't work right now, and his stat mechanic, and other mechanics that was planned, like this, but couldn't be released in the full game. It makes me wish that I knew how to code so I could do it for them. I honestly wish that. Or at least test out some of the things that I think would actually work for this guy. Different movesets, or how his EXP system and grief system should be balanced based off of how easy or how hard some of these fights could be to him. Now, of course, I would also scale it based off of how much LV he has. But that's just a me thing, I believe. I mean, in a way, making it to where the more LV you have, the harder it is to get, even though it technically already does that naturally, because it's Undertale LV we're talking about here. But still, point still stands. That's just what I think about it. Anyway, I think I'll end it off here. Let me get to the house real quick. Alright. Oh. You made it this far, and you made it to the end. I'm glad that you at least tried to listen to my little pep talk, I guess. My rant, if you could call it that. Actually, yeah, it's more akin to rant. Either way, that's what I believe should change for Murder Sans in this game. He has so much potential, but is held back by its own community, and, well, was held back by its own community. Till now, it's pretty much non-existent. And that's really unfortunate for a game like this. Because I dare say that this game relies upon both PvP and PvE. It relies on the community more than the game itself. That's what I think. Like, this whole setting here, even despite the character that I have here, this setting alone, you can just have a whole skit or a whole video based off of it alone. You could roleplay, you could do whatever in this game, and it actually feels natural. The issue is because of its restrictions that the community gives it. Like, items are taken away, yeah, they were powerful, but some had really cool and unique effects that even if it were to be cosmetic, would still be really dang cool to have. It would be really cool. It's just unfortunate that it's downright the opposite. It was just removed entirely. No special cosmetics, no special effects for any items that you can have. No anything of that sort. Yes, they are able to make fun mechanics like the snowball fight and such. Who knows, they might actually make a working Grilby's bar eventually. But it's just how it goes, man. With a game that the devs don't really care that much for, except for the new guy, a lot of stuff is on that new guy's shoulders. God help him. But I hope he doesn't disappoint. Have a lot of hope from. Just I have a little bit too much hope for him. Not gonna lie. I've been so down in the dumps because I've seen this character and its potential ever since he dropped, and I've been hoping they give back at least a portion of what that PvE grind used to be to him. Even at least if it was for specifically Flowey and Toriel. I wouldn't be upset if it was just for those two. I wouldn't care how long it took. As long as the option was there, I'd take it. It's something. But no, he just has nothing. At least for until whatever they're working on actually gets here, right? Well, yeah, that's me talking about my feelings about Murder Sans in this game. Really high potential, even for the rest of the game. The game has potential, but it's held back by its community, or it used to be held back by its community. And it's severely held back by the devs. Recently, it's been changing. From what I know, because they tend to keep a lot of stuff under wraps, no one knows how much it's changing. Not even me. And I would love to know just how much is actually changing behind the scenes. But I can only hope for so much. To them, I'm just a random nobody. To a lot of people, I'm a random nobody. But my heart's where my heart's always going to be, and I love this guy. Because it's a tragedy you could spin so many ways. And some you can actually make a real hopeless tragedy. Have a real silver lining and the potential, maybe, just maybe, this can turn out for the better. All it takes is that one little moment. And things change. Anyway, yes, this whole video was about UTA, abbreviation from Undertale Arena. I loved its PvE. I love its PvP, although it can get real tiresome sometimes. It's real stressful as as Murder Sans because of just the potential for counter picks is so high, especially if you're low level, and that's always been a pain point for this character. Always has been, always will be, unless PvE, LV, or Grief is involved in any way, shape, or form. Even if it's small, maybe even if it's capped, at least if it's after this pain point of level 12 at the bare minimum, it is fine. Although I would prefer PvE level 20 to be a thing if it's a dead server or whatnot, like how it is now. But still, what can you do if the devs don't want to do whatever, right? Now, I'm not saying it would be fast or whatever, it's just at least give us the capability. Now, later on, I'll probably talk more about how this guy had more plans for the character, and eventually also show the call system, because it's actually really dang cool. It just breaks a lot more because this game's really not been that well kept at all by the devs. I just hope everything starts to turn out okay, or at least at the bare minimum. Up to 12. Up to LV12 for PvE only. At the bare minimum, that's what I think would be the best stop point. Some say level 4, some say level 8, but as it stands right now, level 12 is you're set for PvE. At level 12, you could probably take on hard mode Flowey and maybe take him on afterwards, right? It's not a guarantee. It's something. But right now, we're stuck at level 1 with the most useless tools until the game revives itself, or they just change up PvE in a different way that would actually benefit both the whole player base and this character in particular. Sure, sounds selfish, but this character is the most complex it can be, and is actually a lot more complex than the current Sans or any other character ever. The only special treatment this guy had, aside from the others, was on release day. That was it. And after that, he was nerfed to the ground ever since. Mind you, it was all necessary. But all I'm saying is PvE not being a thing for him anymore, I disagree with it. Anyway, take care.